All right, folks, why don't we get down to actually analyzing some of the actual true core issues surrounding this entire exchange with Thunderfoot. We've been treated lately to what I consider to be propaganda and jingoism and simplistic thinking on his part, when what we really have are four complex areas that are meeting together in a nexus which can only be more complex than any of its components. You know, the four areas: religion. Religion is complex. The religious impulse is complex. The forms of religion are complex. Um, Freedom of speech, very complex. The proper limits on the freedom of speech, because there are limits on the freedom of speech. As soon as we infringe upon someone else's rights, that is where our rights stop. That's true of all our rights. Humor. Very, very complex. The forms of humor, the forms humor takes, the purposes of humor. Humor is one of the most complex things that I can think of. And we have cross-cultural communication and values, another incredibly complex area. And in this issue of physical cartoons, all of these come together in a nexus. And this complexity is not being respected by Thunderfoot or by most people here. It requires analysis. So, satire. Why is satire protected as free speech? Because tyrants hate satire. Now, however, when you get down to physical depictions, when you get down to cartoons and characterization, you run a great risk of humor being misapplied. Humor is a double-edged sword. Some of the worst stereotypes have been depicted as cartoons, and this is the risk in any cartoon that tries to depict someone from another culture. Prejudice, racism, ethnic bias can very easily enter into these pictures. So this is difficult. Also, humor in general, humor can be healthy. We can have a healthy sense of humor, or it can be loathsome and do a lot of damage and basically be used as an insult. I'm sure you're acquainted with many of the racist cartoons, which exaggerated people's feature, made them appear to be simian, made them appear to be less than human, and this type of depiction is used to dehumanize people, which generally is part of oppressing them, even eventually exterminating them. So we are on dangerous ground when we talk about physical depiction and cartooning. Um, um, and as I say, stereotypes are always exaggerated cartoon type things. Um, you know, I did two other videos, by the way, called The Proper Targets for Satire before Thunderfoot issued his first video, South Park versus Islam. And this, in a way, touches on that. If you're interested, you can watch those. It was a conversation I was having with something Sea Trash, where I talked about the various forms of satire. Um, uh, um, when we get into cross-cultural valuation, I mean, it's been clearly stated by many people that to depict an image of Muhammad, it actually hurts people. It wounds people. You know, that's a value system which is not in the general majority American population, but it must be respected. When you have an image of an exaggerated, featured image of someone who's supposed to be Mohammed, who, by the way, no one knows what he really looked like anyway, with a bomb in his hat, that is merely insult. There is no redeeming quality to that, because what is the true purpose of satire? The true purpose of satire is to reveal the hypocrisy, the vanity, um, and the lies, the vices of mankind. That's what healthy satire does. It reveals these human foibles, particularly in people who have power. Now, an insulting cartoon does not do that. It has no revelatory power. It has no message other than to say, I'm just insulting you. So what is the benefit of that? No. No, the value in satire is that it, as I say, it shows it reveals the vices, the hypocrisy, and the vanity, primarily of people who are in power. This is why tyrants hate it. So my point is that if you're drawing cartoons of people and they don't have this quality to them, then they're nothing but an insult. And people are saying this hurts us. So why do it unless you simply wish to insult? Now, in this great age of reason, even recently up to the late 1800s, when people were insulted, they challenged each other to duels. There was this type of violence in our culture. And even today, if you walk up down the street to people and you say insult their girlfriend, right, or their mother, for instance, and you just insult their mother, who they respect and feel tender towards, sooner or later you're going to get somebody who overreacts, who takes real offense and overreacts. So in that sense, this is not foreign to our culture. When someone insults something we value and cherish, we have a response. So this is a point I want to make about this. As far as cartoons go, they're very dangerous. Just look at the history of racist cartoons in this country. Look at ethnic jokes. Uh, Look at a lot of the images that used to be shown on commercials. I don't know. There used to be a lot of sort of ethnic caricatures used as brand names that were finally taken off the air because people protested and say, no, this is demeaning, this is belittling, this belittles our culture. Now, a word on free speech in general. The free speech, there are limits on free speech. One, for instance, is not allowed, and people should know this if they ever took a class on this, any philosophy or civics class. You don't have the right to yell fire in a crowded theater because it will cause a stampede and people will die. Your rights end where the other person's rights start. Um, oh, I had another point. Yes, libel and slander. If we make false statements that damage a person's reputation, we are legally liable. There are consequences for that because it lowers their economic functionality and it diminishes their reputation in the community. Now, if you look at the global community, okay, look at the global community. And if you are slandering and insulting and belittling a group of people, for instance, Muslims, you are lowering their standing in the global community. That is, in that sense, libel and slander. So there should be limits on that as well, I think. Common decency, common respect, and common politeness are really all that is called for here. Um, One thing humor does too, there are many things that make people laugh. Sometimes people just laugh out of a sort of hysterical reaction to something because they are afraid. And I think that, some of these ridiculous cartoons there, I can't, this doesn't justify them, but I think some of them are a fear response. And I would hope that other people in the world understand that some of it is just a hysterical fear response. Uh, because what I'm seeing is a lot of prejudice coming about, Islamophobia, and that's based on fear. So um, I think that there's a tendency for people to want to kind of sort of, you know, make a cartoon because it makes them feel like something. It diffuses the power of something. They feel like they're no longer afraid of it. Humor can have a sort of a narcotic ability too, which is what that narcotic ability, that ability to quell fear and pain, is what makes humor a good teaching tool because it keeps the mind open to what might be you know, frightening ideas or uncomfortable ideas. So what I'm arguing for is the proper use of humor, the proper use of satire to open the mind, to expand the mind, to teach, to reveal hypocrisy, vices, etc. Not to insult, belittle, and demean people. And I'm calling for just some general maturity, human maturity, and intercultural respect. So that's the story, folks. If you're curious, watch those other two videos I did call the proper targets of satire. Take care. Bye bye.